The NSW
in Jamaica.
President Donald Trump's
solid waste reduction.
Marcus Happily. Good day, I'm Shane Masters and welcome to News Rewind, JNN's look at the top stories of a week that was. National Security Minister Robert Montague has denied all claims that he demanded the resignation of a police commissioner George Coelho. Rumors had surfaced that Mr. Coelho was forced out after a meeting with the minister last Monday. Kimberly Wright has more.
Information regarding what happened in the meeting is sketchy, but up to news time, both Mr. Montague and the police were denying that Mr. Coelho had resigned. A release from the Police Officers Association, POA, stated that Commissioner Coelho indicated that he will continue to serve in hopes of intercepting crime in the country. It said Commissioner Coelho has the full support of the executive of the organization. Chairman of the POA, Superintendent Catherine Lord, said 6 of the 7-member executive were present at the Ministry of National Security where the meeting was held. Frontline News understands that Mr. Coelho did not disclose details of the discussion with the minister. Rank-and-file members of the JCF have, however, accused Mr. Montague of showing disrespect to Mr. Coelho over last week's traffic gridlock on the Palisados Road in Kingston. The members are said to be upset about a statement released by Mr. Montague last week rejecting the preliminary report submitted by Mr. Coelho. In a statement to the media, Mr. Montague had said Mr. Coelho's report did not meet the standards which the public has come to expect of the JCF. The commissioner submitted a full report to the minister on Friday. Frontline News understands that the Police Federation, which represents rank-and-file members, also wrote to Mr. Montague, highlighting its displeasure with what it described as the disrespect being shown to the commissioner. Highly placed sources said what is being described as the public humiliation of the commissioner is not going down well with the members of the force. According to them, all branches of the force are upset with the security minister. The POA says there needs to be an intervention to address the issues and repair the strained relationship between the commissioner and the security minister.
Meanwhile, after weeks, the controversy of the alleged strained relationship between the Commissioner of Police George Coelho and the Minister of National Security Robert Montague, things seems to have been put to rest. This after several rank-and-file members felt the Security Minister disrespected the Commissioner regarding the preliminary report submitted of the traffic pileup on the Palisados Strip.
Minister of National Security Robert Montague has dismissed the reports of a rift with Commissioner of Police George Coelho. Mr. Montague said both he and Mr. Coelho are committed to tackling crime. A member of the Police Officers Association, POA, Superintendent David White, explained the reason rank-and-file members were furious at the security minister.
What we are trying to do from the Police Officers Association is to highlight the separation of powers between the two offices. And then we are trying to put to the Jamaican public that what you see play out on here, on in the electronic media, should not have happened.
Superintendent White explained that his main issue is the fact that the matter was publicized and not dealt with privately.
The minister should not come on here to speak about an issue, administrative issue, with the Commissioner of Police on here.
Administrative issues. So, and you're talking about specifically what? Like earlier on from like...
Earlier on in regards to the issue of reporting and the report that was sent to him. If he had issues with those, that is something that should be discussed between the Commissioner of Police and the Minister of National Security in their own private quarters.
Superintendent White outlined the difference in the roles of the police commissioner and the security minister. He said the minister deals directly with policy and the commissioner handles all the operations of the JCF.
That include promotion, that include transfers, distribution of motor vehicles, all resources across. That's the police commissioner's remit.
Yes.
The policy will give directive somewhat, as it will also assist in drafting laws and to assist in the fight or the operational activities of the Commissioner of Police.
The police commissioner is expected to make all reports to the Minister of National Security. Commissioner Coelho reportedly blames the commanding officer, Superintendent Robert Walker, for the 8-hour traffic pileup on the Palisados Road on New Year's Day. He said Superintendent Walker failed to display diligence and proper management skills.
With over 40 murders reported in Jamaica since the new year, the U.S. State Department has issued a travel advisory warning Americans to exercise increased caution in the island due to crime. Cody Barrett has more.
On Thursday, opposition spokesperson on tourism Dr. Wickham McNeil expressed his views on the recent travel advisory.
The crime is getting out of control, and murders in particular. I think the bad part about it is murders in the areas that are traditionally our tourism areas is increasing. So Montego Bay, places like Hanover and Westmoreland are up there, whereas before they were never really on the radar. So it's an unfortunate situation, and now we've seen this advisory. But part of the problem is that our people, Jamaicans, have been crying out about the crime and the rampant murders now for months, and I think that just the start of this year with, I mean, if the figures are there somewhere between 40 and 50 murders already for the month, it is really a serious situation that we're facing.
Dr. McNeil gave details of the advisory and what it means for Jamaica.
The body of the advisory speaks to, it's an advisory about safety. It's a safety advisory, and it speaks to specific areas where you can and cannot go. So or where there's danger. So it's really speaking to the crime rate and the fact that murders are up this year.
He highlighted some protocols put in place to mitigate violence against tourists in hotels.
There's training that takes place across the entire industry, just dealing with best practices. And we're not just talking about things of a sexual nature, rape or molestation or things like that, or harassment, but across, theft or just how you basically treat persons, because you always have cultural norms.
Dr. McNeil said the advisory is exaggerated. This is because Jamaica has one of the lowest figures depicting crimes against tourists. Dr. McNeil was speaking on Thursday's edition of Hotline Interface on JNN and RGR 94 FM.
The St. Thomas police are investigating the double murder of an elderly couple in the Retreat district in the parish. Reports are that the bodies of Melbourne Flake, also known as Cooley, and is said to be in his 80s, and his wife Etha in her mid-70s, were found bound and gagged with their heads bashed in. The Flakes, who are Jamaicans, are also Canadian citizens. Jamaica needs more state of emergencies, better working conditions for the police, and changes in leadership in order to lessen the crime rate and increase economic growth. That's the word from board member of the Peace Management Initiative, PMI, Horace Levy. Kimberly Wright tells us more.
On JNN and Power 106 FM's Power Talk Live on Tuesday, Mr. Levy said the approach taken to minimize crime must be immediate and long-term.
I think we have to confront it. The country is being overwhelmed at the moment, and we have to take strong action. Clearly, a state of emergency in an area is not a matter of putting a boundary about it and saying you have to be searched to enter this area or leave the area. It's a matter of spot searches and a network of activity within that area, and the ability of the security forces to take the appropriate action in there, suspending certain rights. There's no two ways about it. It has to be done.
Mr. Levy noted that the state of emergencies will have to continue longer than 2 months to allow the long-term social intervention to occur in particular areas. He said though the zones of special operations ZOZO have had some positive effects, there's still more to be done.
Essentially, what's lacking in the ZOZOs in that respect is a focus on the youth in the area, 15 to 30, and in trying to mainstream those youth, right? The number of youth in each of these communities varies. It can run, depending on the size of the community, from 50 to 300. And those, I'm talking about at-risk youth.
He explained that social workers known as violence interrupters who volunteer with the PMI, have been making tremendous progress in St. Catherine and Clarendon.
I mean, the PMI actually has numbers of the conflicts that have headed off in each of these areas. They keep records, day-by-day records. They have to report on these things, right? And the records show the number of conflicts headed off and prevented. And as a result, in those 10 communities around Spanish Town, between January and September, just to quote you one figure, murders dropped by 30% last year, when in the parish as a whole, murders were going up by over 8%.
Mr. Levy said the issue of gang-related crimes are primarily as a result of police corruption. He said the main focus of the PMI currently is to restore peace in Mountain View Avenue and ultimately Jamaica.
The business community and other groups are again raising concerns about the murder rate in Jamaica. Reports are that more than 40 persons have been murdered since the start of the year. President of a private sector organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, Howard Mitchell, is suggesting that the situation be treated as a national crisis. The organization last month expressed concerns about what it said was an inability to decisively address crime and indiscipline in Jamaica. Mr. Mitchell is adamant that the upsurge in crime across Jamaica be brought under control.
We want a national position to be taken by the opposition and the government on the management of crime. We do not want to know that there is political point scoring or political undermining going on. We think it is time that the political parties that govern us or have ambition to govern us come together and tell us and show us how they will manage crime in this country and bring it down to a rate that people can feel free to go about their business.
Mr. Mitchell revealed that the main concern is that there are issues between the Minister of National Security and the Commissioner of Police. This, he says, may interfere with the teamwork or the effective coordination and implementation of policy. He went on to say clarification is needed because of a number of conflicting stories that have emerged following the meetings between the two parties. 26-year-old Ryan Letman, also known as Prezi, has been charged with the murder of 4 persons who were shot and burned in Westmoreland last year. Letman, who is unemployed and from an Upper King Street, Montego Bay address, was charged after he was found in possession of a murder weapon. He was pointed out on an identification parade on Thursday at the Mandeville police station. Was the condition of the road a major factor in the fatal crash involving a market truck on the Mandela Highway in St. Catherine on Monday? The National Works Agency, NWA, says there is no conclusion that can be drawn at this time about whether this was responsible for Monday night's accident. NWA Communications Manager Stephen Shaw says any conclusion at this stage would be premature and unreliable. 2 Clarendon residents were killed and 11 other persons injured when the truck overturned in a ditch. The police, as well as some motorists, believe that inadequate lighting played a role in the crash. Superintendent in charge of operations at the Highway and Traffic Division of the JCF, Courtney Kubri, stated that the road needed reflections and signs to warn motorists. However, while acknowledging that the area has had lighting issues in the past due to stolen street lights, Mr. Shaw argued that there are implements in place which assist motorists, so there is a need for further investigations.
It is dark, but we have things there. The reflectorized barriers are there. The cat's eyes are on the road, and the road being dark is not dissimilar to, let us say, the toll road. But you have reflectors in a similar way along the Mandela on the toll roads. The section where the accident would have happened, we don't have any impediments, say, in that area. It's a straight road. It's not like you're going around a corner. It's a very straight road. There's no activity really taking place on the road itself. We have to understand exactly what went down. And I think Superintendent Kubri will know very well. I am saying that he might have been a little bit premature.
Mr. Shaw is also suggesting that other factors could have influenced road conditions, and this is a reason for further investigations to be conducted.
We have been working with the JPS to try and ensure that we have proper systems in place. On that side of the Mandela, we have the high tension poles. That too was a factor. JPS Corp, we don't generally see them putting lighting on the high tension poles. So the lamps would have been on the western side of the road and not the eastern side, meaning eastbound. That is where they were actually removed from.
Now, Jamaica was placed on a tsunami warning Tuesday night. However, it was withdrawn at around 11:30 p.m. This after an earthquake of magnitude 7.6 that struck in the Caribbean Sea last week, which was felt across the northern region of Central America. This triggered a tsunami warning for disaster hit Puerto Rico, as well as the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, and of course, Jamaica. The earthquake occurred west of Jamaica at a depth of 6.2 miles. The National Water Commission (NWC) plans drastic measures to recover over $20 billion in revenue owed to it by customers. Akoya Radamari has the details.
Speaking on Power Talk on Power 106 FM and JNN on Tuesday, Corporate Public Relations Manager at the NWC, Charles Buchanan, said a total of 25% of receivables are of disconnected accounts. He added that this poses a challenge for the company.
And that presents a particular challenge for us because it means that at some point in time, the normal service relationship between ourselves and that particular property has been stopped. We have disconnected the supply, but no one has made any attempt to make payment to restore the service. We know from experience that a significant proportion of those persons who are disconnected illegally reconnect themselves. And so part of our thrust in the new year is to more frequently visit disconnected supplies.
He said approximately 125,000 accounts out of a total of 450,000 are currently disconnected. He noted that particular attention will be given to persons who have been disconnected. He highlighted a welcome back program that the NWC has started to regularize accounts that are off the system or illegally connected.
That part of our thrust last year was to offer a series of amnesties where we said we will write off large portions of amounts that are owing. And we wrote off millions of dollars of debt to a number of accounts. We are now at a place where we're saying, having offered a number of those incentives, we are now going to be adding to the more stringent measures. So we will be taking action, stepping up our disconnection drive. We will be increasing the frequency of our visits to properties that owe us sums. We're increasing the frequency with which we send out reminder notices through a variety of means, including whether we send it by text, we are sending it via email, we're sending it in the regular mail to remind persons of the amounts they owe us and their due dates.
Mr. Buchanan also added that steps will be taken to remedy problems of complaints from customers with unmetered supplies who are dissatisfied with the estimated amount of water they may have used. According to him, the NWC will be receiving the first batch of 9,000 new meters by the end of January. He said this will address problems of persons who have unmetered supplies who have been disputing the bills that they were being sent.
These new meters have some built-in features that make it easier for persons to check their consumption and to conserve. It allows you, by just tapping certain points on the meter, to see exactly what is happening, what flows are coming through at the moment, and it will show you the real-time usage of water on your property. It will even allow the NWC to be observing the daily usage and be able to more quickly alert a customer to say, based on the usage pattern that we are seeing, it seems as if you're using the same amount of water in the night as you're using it in the day, for example.
Mr. Buchanan added that these new meters will give customers greater control of their bills. He urged persons whose supplies have been disconnected to make every effort to regularize their account. He also added that the NWC will be stepping up its rechecks and frequency of visit to properties and implore those who owe the Commission to make the necessary payments to avoid being prosecuted.
A deal has been struck between the Teachers Association and the government. According to the JTA, the two have agreed to greater fringe benefits for teachers. In relation to pension payments, teachers will now pay 1% over 2 years instead of 2.5% over 2 years. Teachers will benefit also from new arrangements with the National Housing Trust (NHT). NHT beneficiaries will be able to collect their refunds now. Interest rates will be moved down by 1% and there will be no closing cost for accessing NHT houses. Territory grants will be resumed for teachers' children. Guidance counselors are now eligible for senior teachers' positions and they will get increased allowances. We take a break. News Rewind will be right back with the top business stories.
The NSW
in Jamaica.
President Donald Trump's
solid waste reduction.
Marcus Eppley. Welcome back to News Rewind. Now for the top business stories of the past week. A record 4 million tourists visited the island in 2017. This is according to the provisional data from the Jamaica Tourist Board. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says this represents a 21.1% increase over arrivals in 2016. He says Jamaica broke the 4 million mark in December, and by the end of the month, it increased to 4.3 million. This comprised over 2.35 million stopover arrivals and over 1.94 million cruise passengers. The visitors provided revenue of $3 billion. Mr. Bartlett is expecting the growth in tourist arrivals to continue for the rest of the winter tourist season.
Even with the big chill up north, we're still looking at a 5% growth for the first week of January. And the bookings are very strong. And we're expecting a very, very strong winter on top of a record-breaking 2017, where we brought 4.3 million international visitors. And we haven't added the Jamaica nationals from overseas as yet, or the diaspora trade. We think that when that is through, and perhaps by the end of the fiscal year, we probably will see a record 4.5 million visitors coming and earning well over $3 billion.
Montego Bay Jamaica Airports Limited on Tuesday signed off on a loan agreement with Scotiabank valued at $40 million or 5 billion Jamaican dollars to undertake expansion of the Sangster International Airport. The expansion project, which is already underway, will see MBJ resurfacing Sangster's taxiways and aprons. This is an area where aircraft are parked, unloaded or loaded, refueled or boarded. MBJ will repay Scotiabank over a 7-year period. However, the project is expected to be completed by the end of the year. Technology Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley has shed light on why the Joint Select Committee of Parliament appointed to review the Data Protection Bill has extended the period for submissions. January 17 is a final date. Dr. Wheatley says this follows requests from various groups.
For them to complete their submission. And so we took that into consideration and just extended it by 2 weeks to ensure that we provide all or as much persons to participate in the process.
The Data Protection Bill aims to safeguard the privacy of individuals whose personal information has been documented by entities with whom they interface. In the meantime, Dr. Wheatley says several submissions have been received from various groups and organizations regarding the Data Protection Bill,
such as the Jamaica Computer Society, the Bankers Association, the U.S. Department of Commerce, private individuals, and most of these submissions are very informative and give us, a wide spectrum of options and possibilities to examine to ensure that this data protection bill is a very critical piece of legislation that will define our ICT sector from an investment perspective, from a data protection privacy perspective, where our citizens will have a recourse as relates to the misuse or mishandling of their personal information that they have entrusted to, whether it's a bank or any data collection agency.
And that's your News Rewind for this week. I'm Shane Masters. Pleasant viewing.